Hi, this is Brian.
Jason.
And this is the Perfectly Screwed Podcast. Episode 124. This is going to be part 2 of Scott Peterson and Lacey and the murder. If you have not listened to episode 123, which is part 1, please go back and do that. So, we were talking about the fact that there wasn't any...
Not a lot of evidence.
Not a lot of evidence, really none. Now, they did find... the FBI and the Modesto Police Department, they performed a forensic search of the Peterson home when they finally thought Scott was the one who did this.
So, how long from when Lacey went missing was it until they found her body washed up in the bay?
Over a year.
Really?
Yeah, her body was extremely decomposed. Actually, they found the baby's body first. It's interesting.
Oh, gosh.
They found the baby, and there was evidence that the baby had been carved up or, like, hurt.
Yeah, but how could you know? I mean, that could be fish eating on it or something, you know?
Yes. That's why they don't know. But the fetus's skin was not decomposed at all.
I can't believe a year later a body would be even recognizable at all. You know?
Yeah, and the fetus's skin was not decomposed. So what they think was...
That's crazy.
...is Lacey died, and then eventually her body rejected the fetus, and, you know, as her body was floating in the bay...
As it decomposed,
the fetus came out. Right.
Wow, man, that is nuts.
But they said that... this is the interesting thing, though. The body of the fetus was mutilated on the right side, and there was 1.5 loops of nylon tape found around the fetus's neck, and a significant cut was on the fetus's body. So, they can't explain why that is.
Yeah.
Because there was tape wrapped around the baby's neck. So if she had aborted it, like they're trying to say, why would there be tape around the neck?
And you can't really, like, put tape around the neck of a baby that's inside of a woman.
Right. That would be impossible.
Unless it just got wound or wrapped around it in the water somehow. I don't know, man. That's
not only that,
that's strange.
Lacey's upper torso were emptied of all internal organs, except her uterus. She had no heart, no lungs, no liver, no pancreas, no stomach, nothing. All of her internal organs were taken out. Her uterus was completely intact, and her cervix was completely intact.
That's a mystery.
Right, so how did she abort the baby if the cervix and the uterus were intact?
And who's just extracting organs, you know?
Mm-hmm. Now, one piece of evidence that they said they found is they found a hair on a pair of pliers on Scott's boat. Not in the pliers, but laying on top of the pliers, and it was Lacey's. But,
I mean...
that's his wife.
Right.
She'd been on the boat many times.
Absolutely.
I mean...
her hair's probably all over the boat.
Right, that's pretty thin.
Of course.
That's damn near transparent at that point.
That's not evidence at all.
No, but they used that as evidence. They also said they found a concrete anchor. And Scott told them that he had made the anchor for the boat using a 90-pound bag of concrete, and he'd used the rest to repair his driveway. They also found cement on the bed of his boat trailer. Now, what they said was They think he made 4 anchors, used 3 to weigh down Lacey, and 1 for the boat. But my point is this, and this is where I have a problem with that little statement. If you're going to make 4 anchors, 3 of them to weigh down your wife or you're killing, why would you keep 1?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you put all 4 on
Right.
her and then they'd never know you made a concrete anchor? Why would you keep evidence?
Yeah, I don't know.
Plus, they went to the bay searching for these mysterious 4 anchors, dragging the bay, sending deep sea divers all through this bay, didn't find any anchors, didn't find a bit of anchors. Again, they found no blood on the boat, no blood in his house, no blood in his car, no evidence whatsoever of any foul play. So where'd he kill this chick at?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you think if you're killing the person and removing all their internal organs, there'd be a little bit of blood. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So, they take him to trial.
And so did they find any evidence of when they found Lacey of her being tied?
No.
Like to the anchors? Cause
No.
like, I guess another thing to me would be if you're tying someone down and throwing them overboard with anchors, doesn't it seem odd now that they're washing up?
Well, I mean, after a year, they might decompose to the point they get loose.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And it is a bay,
That's true.
so there's waves and such. It could dislodge the body.
But you would have thought that, yeah. But if she was anchored in the, you definitely would have thought they would have found her with all the search. They would have found something.
So, lacking any direct evidence whatsoever to link Scott to the crime, prosecutors relied on circumstantial evidence pointing in particular to Scott's behavior before and after Lacey's disappearance. They called a bunch of witnesses to basically talk shit about Scott, saying that he was tired of the marriage, he felt pressure from a pregnancy, that he wanted to continue his affair with Fry. And then it comes out that he had 2 previous affairs plus 1 in college. But this is my point. Why would he kill her now? He's already had, that they know of, 3 affairs plus the Fry bitch. Okay? So he ended all 3 before that and didn't kill this bitch.
Right.
So why all of a sudden, with this Fry chick, is it, oh, I gotta kill her now? This man has had affairs since a year into their marriage.
Maybe he didn't want the baby?
Well, that's what they said.
Well.
But again,
that's circumstantial. That's not.
way beyond
You can't
circumstantial.
just-
That's making leaps, man.
Oh, yeah.
And they convicted him solely on character witness testimony
Yeah.
and the fact that he acted odd.
Yeah, because they don't have any physical evidence at this point.
None.
None.
They still to this day they don't.
Yeah.
So now we fast forward to now. And I think it was last year, the Innocence Project, which tries to help people that they believe has been wrongly convicted of murder, steps in.
What year did they change from the death sentence to life?
2020, he petitioned to have it overturned.
Okay.
In 2021, they said yes, and they gave him life without parole.
Okay.
Then in 2023, last year, the Innocence Project took his case because he was petitioning them saying, hey, I'm not guilty, man.
Right.
So, in January of 2023, the Innocence Project argued that he did not receive a fair trial 2 decades ago. Upon taking the case, the nonprofit told ABC News that new evidence could prove Scott's innocence and point to his constitutional rights being violated during the initial proceedings. New evidence now supports Mr. Peterson's long-standing claim of innocence and raises many questions into who might have abducted and killed Lacey and Connor Peterson. In more recent court documents filed by the Innocence Project, the nonprofit says some evidence and witness statements from the Modesto Police Department's original investigation were suppressed, missing, and according to the police department, lost. Which, look, I don't want to say nothing bad about the cops, but we hear this a lot.
Yeah.
Okay? It's very often that when the police can't solve a murder, that they lose things that could prove the guy they're going to pin it on not guilty.
Yeah.
They misplace
right.
things that could exonerate this guy, and they quickly find evidence that might not say necessarily exist to prove this guy guilty.
Correct.
Not saying that all police take the easy way out, but what I'm saying is there is a large number of police in many of these cases that we've talked about on this program where they're just like, we can't figure it out. It must be this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, during the Boston Strangler case that we were talking about, they got a psychic, for God's sake.
Right.
I mean, Jiminy Christmas.
But no, you're right. You're right. There does seem to be a lot of misplacing and a lot of losing of evidence.
So, they're seeking to do DNA testing on 17 items. There was 11 items found near or on Lacey and Connor's bodies. Two of the items, there's also 2 items from a burglary that had occurred across the street from the couple's home a few nights before. And there's 4 items connected to a torched red van containing a blood-stained mattress. So, let's kind of, I'm trying to get into the bloodstained mattress. Okay, right down the street, there was an orange van. Okay, the neighbors said they saw this orange van that didn't belong in the neighborhood. It's well known that this was set. Okay, the next day after Lacey went missing, the van mysteriously caught fire on the street. Nobody knows who caught the van on fire. No one knows what went on in the van. But when the fire department put out the fire on the van, they found a mattress in the back with a large amount of blood soaked into the mattress. Now, this was right down the road from where Lacey supposedly was walking the dog. There's also, according to where they said they suppressed witness testimony, there's some people that said they saw Lacey walking the dog. Saw her walking down the road, leaving her house and walking the dog, and that was never presented at Scott's trial.
Oh, okay.
So, the Innocence Project already yielded important leads to evidence supporting Scott Peterson's claim that his wife was alive on December 24th. An example of new evidence presented by the Innocence Project attorneys is eyewitnesses who saw Lacey Peterson walking her dog in the neighborhood after her husband left Modesto. Police never interviewed these witnesses, the nonprofit said. Those witnesses who reported seeing Lacey walking in the neighborhood should have been top priority, the Innocence Project said. if you're running an unbiased missing persons investigation. Not only may those witnesses have provided important information and leads to what happened to Laci, even if only one of those witnesses were credible, Mr. Peterson could not possibly have killed his wife and son if she was seen walking in the neighborhood after he left.
Yeah.
So, yeah, see, that is the first problem. Is that...
No, that's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. You didn't interview witnesses, and they came forward to you and said, hey, we saw Laci and the dog walking around the neighborhood. Then you've got 3 other people that said later on they saw the dog running around the neighborhood with a muddy collar all by himself.
Yeah.
Then you got a van that's parked a few blocks away with a bloodstained mattress in the back. I mean...
That seems like way more circumstantial evidence than anything they got against Scott.
I mean, that's more evidence than anything they had against Scott.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean Scott couldn't be part of the murder.
I'm not saying he didn't commit it. He might have. This could all be just coincidence.
Right.
But I'm just saying, what it does...
He could have hired somebody to do it.
But see, what it does do, and this is the point of what I'm trying to get at, what it does do is put doubt.
Well, what it does do is gives him his alibi complete credence, right? Meaning she was killed and he was not in the area.
Correct.
Yeah.
Plus, at that point, it gives a measure of doubt to the case. And if you present that in court, there's a measure of doubt.
Yeah.
The jury probably wouldn't have even found him guilty if you had put witnesses on the stand that said, hey, Scott I saw leave, and then I saw Laci walking a dog.
Yeah.
Okay, that right there would have destroyed the prosecution's whole case.
Yep.
Okay? So they went to court over this DNA, and the judge approved one of the 14 items that the defense requested. Only one of them. He said, we're only testing one, motherfucker. A California judge largely denied a motion by Scott Peterson's defense team for a new or additional DNA testing in his case. The LA Innocence Project, which took up Scott Peterson's case last year, had requested 14 items be tested or retested for DNA. On Wednesday, a judge in San Mateo County denied the request for all but one item: the duct tape removed from the pants of his wife, Laci Peterson, at the time of her autopsy. An excised portion of that tape was DNA tested in 2003 and shown to have human DNA present, but the DNA was not of an acceptable quality to generate a profile at the time. So during the hours-long motion hearing in Santa Monica County on Wednesday, the Los Angeles Innocence Project argued there is no forensic evidence that supports Scott Peterson having killed his wife and their unborn child. Of course, prosecutors stood by their original ruling. The defendant argued is that there's a fundamental fairness request that requires this testing. The argument is flawed and legally incorrect, David Harris, the original trial prosecutor from the county, told the court. The defendant says the prosecution should want to know and attempt to shame us into agreeing to this test. The people know the truth. We know that Scott Peterson is guilty and has been convicted of murder of his wife and unborn son. The Innocence Project claimed that Scott Peterson's state and federal constitutional rights were violated, including a claim of actual innocence that is supported by newly discovered evidence. His attorneys are also seeking dozens of items they say they could not locate after reviewing the trial files from his prior counsel. After a thorough search, according to court filings, the items include evidence from the investigations into a December 2002 burglary of a home across the street, Laci Peterson's missing Croton watch, and a van fire in the airport district on December 25th. According to the filings, they are also seeking documents from interviews with several witnesses. So, that's another thing I forgot to mention. She always wore this Croton watch. Always. Everywhere she went, she always had it on her. Nobody can find it. It wasn't at the house. Scott didn't know where it was. It wasn't on her body. Nobody can find this watch. And there was a burglary just a few nights before across the street.
Okay.
So it's not a far leap to think that these guys who are committing burglaries in this neighborhood saw this pregnant, easy target woman, very expensive clothes, very expensive watch,
Right.
expensive money. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Just saying. Right.
Now, but for him to only allow one thing to be tested for DNA, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You should test everything they said. Even if, you think it's a long shot, just test it, motherfucker.
Why not?
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. At least he's testing the duct tape. But how stupid are they going to feel if Scott Peterson's DNA isn't on the duct tape? I mean, how dumb are they going to feel at that point?
Yeah.
See, the question is being asked, why was a van fire so close to Laci Peterson's house the day after she went missing? And why was it never investigated?
Great question.
Yeah. On Christmas morning in 2002, he worked, Spilutsky was a private fire investigator that worked for a Modesto Fire Department and was sent to investigate a van fire that he still thinks about to this day. He says, I knew we didn't have a fire that would be accidental. This was not an accidental fire. It came just one day after and less than a mile away from where Laci was reported to have gone missing from her Modesto home. He said, though I didn't put it together at the time that it was connected. It was close enough it should have been looked at. Was it obvious to you right away there was blood in the back of the van, the reporter asked him. No, Spilutsky responded. The only reason we were able to see this piece of fabric was because there was a metal container on top of the mattress. And it left a perfect circle where the container had protected the mattress and the blood. Had that not been there, this wouldn't have happened. He said that when he tested the mattress fabric for blood, the sample turned blue, indicating the sample was positive for blood. The mattress with stains that tested positive for blood, adding that only a very small portion of the mattress fabric was tested for DNA, which was insufficient to determine whether the DNA was Laci or Connor's. He says, it bothered me for a long time that it was blood with one sample, but then when the Department of Justice got involved, after they had arrested Scott, they said that it came back negative for blood. He said, when I tested it, it was blood.
Yeah.
He said, then I sent it to the Department of Justice after the FBI and them arrested Scott.
Not blood.
And they said, no, it's not blood. Not blood.
Interesting.
Okay. So he said, after that, I just assumed they were correct and that my test was wrong, but it always bothered me. He said, then imagine my shock when I found out a few years ago that in fact it did test positive for blood and human DNA. He said, I had no clue up to this point that what I had tested was blood. I literally got goosebumps on the back of my arms and the hair on my neck because it does mean something. It is obviously significant. So he said, okay, so they retested it a few years ago, back in 2022. Guess what? It is blood, and there's human DNA on it. But the Department of Justice found no blood.
Yeah.
None. Again, not saying the guy was railroaded, but
Yeah, he's
starting to look like he was kind of railroaded.
a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, they don't have any physical evidence against the guy.
No, but look, this is my point. You got the fire marshal at the time saying, hey, this is blood. Maybe you should, look into the DNA. And then the Department of Justice going, no, it's not blood. Trust me, it's not blood. Then they retest the fabric 20 years later. Oh, wait, guess what? It's blood. Maybe you should, consider that. But no, what it was, this is the thing, right? I really am not trying to bash the cops, but this is the crazy thing about police that I find. They look, and it just seems to me, my opinion, they look for the easiest possible answer to solve the crime.
Absolutely.
The least amount of work they have to do.
Especially a high-profile case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nationwide, high profile, there's a lot of pressure to solve this.
Somebody's going down.
Yes. And you might never solve this murder if it's some random guys that abducted her off the street, killed her in a van for her money and her or whatever,
Yeah.
and then dumped her in the bay. You might never, ever catch these guys because you have no way to link them to her for real.
Yeah.
But you got her husband acting crazy. You see that he's cheating on her all the time. Perfect scapegoat.
Yeah.
Perfect scapegoat.
That's-
and
yeah.
you can easily just say, hey, it's this guy. Look what he did.
That's what I...
He's an asshole.
That's how I feel about it, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just said, he's the scapegoat.
Right.
He's the easy target. He's the easy conviction.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, am I saying Scott Peterson's innocent? No, I don't know. But what I'm saying is there is enough evidence to prove reasonable doubt.
I can't say he's guilty.
No, I couldn't say 100% he was guilty.
Yeah.
Yes, if you didn't show me any of this evidence that we have now, if you didn't include the witness testimony that said, yes, she's walking around the neighborhood after Scott left, and you don't include the bloodstained mattress and the burn-up van a mile away, and you don't include the fact that you didn't test DNA from any of the things you found on her body, like duct tape,
Yeah.
and you don't include the fact that she was missing all of her personal possessions. If you don't include any of that, then yeah, he looks guilty.
Yeah.
Only because he's an asshole. He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't show emotions, and he cheats on her, and he was a shit husband and a shit person. Okay? But being a horrible human being does not make you a murderer.
Correct.
Okay? It doesn't.
No.
And you can't say just because he's an asshole that he deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison if he didn't do this.
But that's what's scary, like you said earlier about the criminal justice system, is this dude has been in jail for over 20 years.
Yeah.
All based on nothing.
Based on no evidence
being an
whatsoever.
asshole.
Right. Based on the fact.
And having a
That he's an
high
asshole.
profile case.
Right. And the fact that, the way it's looking, let's just call a spade here. It looks like the police and the Department of Justice basically, I wouldn't say necessarily suppressed evidence, but they sure as hell didn't try to investigate
Right.
evidence that didn't point to Scott.
Correct.
If it was something that didn't point to him being guilty, they pushed it aside
Or lost it.
or lost it
Yeah.
or said it didn't exist. And they only focused on anything that proves him guilty.
Correct.
Anything that gave doubt to that, they said, well, that's bullshit and we're going to push it away.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times this happens in more than one case. The DeSalvo thing with the Boston Strangler. He got so many details wrong about the crimes, but they know he was at least one crime scene and he admitted to it, so they just pushed away all the shit that he got wrong and said, what you really meant there, Albert, was it wasn't a blue chair, it's a red chair, right? And then him being, first of all, Albert DeSalvo was mentally ill, and he was clinically slow. He had an IQ of a child.
Yep.
So he just agreed to it. Oh, yeah, you're right, the chair was red. And then they used that, and they said, oh, well, he admitted to it. Look, he said the chair was red.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it was after we prompted him, but, obviously he did it. Because a lot of times police, and that's scary not only for our criminal justice system, but it's scary just as a normal citizen that really you could be innocent of something and they will find a way to say you did it even though you didn't do it.
Absolutely.
You better have an airtight motherfucking alibi for everywhere you go at all times. And if you don't, you could be sitting in prison for 20 years over something you did not even do.
Yeah. It really is crazy to think about.
Yeah, but it's a fact of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hope you guys enjoyed our 2 episodes on Scott and Lacey Peterson. And we will see you next time.
Later.